guys, Dan Lopatka here, at Music on the D-Lo on Twitter and Instagram. And in this lesson, I'm going to show you how to play this massively funky spy movie bass riff. Now this riff is going to utilize three techniques, and those are hammer-ons, pull-offs, and slides. And if you already have a pretty good working knowledge of those, you can jump on down to the description. I have time markers for each section, and you can jump right ahead to the riff. For those of you who don't know those techniques or just need a little bit of a refresher, stay tuned. So our first technique we're going to talk about is hammer-ons. And a hammer-on is when we bring our finger forcefully and quickly down onto a fret to make that note play. So for example, if we wanted to play the note C, the third fret on the A string, we'd do just that. Though, generally speaking, we're not just going to hit a note like that. Usually what we'll do is we'll play a note first with our right hand, and then hammer on the note after that. For example, if I played the note A, the A string, with my right hand, and then hammered on C. This tends to work better because the string is already vibrating from hitting it with our right hand, and so the hammering is just continuing that vibration. We of course don't need to play an open string first. We could always be fretting a note and then play a hammered note. For example, if we played the note C and then hammered on D, the 5th fret. We can also string hammer-ons together like I do at the beginning of this riff. So I play the note A, I hammer on C, and then I hammer on D. But I only play the A string once, which sounds like this. One of the pitfalls I tend to see students make when they learn this technique is that they don't press down hard or quick enough. So what they end up doing is just muting the string. Going back to our original example of playing the A string and then hammering on C, if you don't press down hard enough, this happens. How hard you have to press down on the string depends a lot on how high your action is. For me, my action is pretty darn low, so I really don't have to press down too hard. However, if you have higher action, you might have to press down harder. All of this will be specific to your instrument, so experimentation is the key here. Our next technique is called a pull-off, and it's essentially the opposite of a hammer-on. Here, we're taking our finger off of a fretted note by pulling the string downward, almost like we're plucking with our left hand. So if we have our finger back on the 3rd fret, we're sort of pulling downwards, and I like to let my finger almost hit the next string. Again, we generally won't do it just isolated like that. We'll first play a note with our right hand, and then we'll pull off to get a note lower, like this. Like with hammer-ons, this can be done with 2 fretted notes. So, for example, if we were on the note D, and we wanted to pull off and hit the note C, we would have D, pull off, C. A pitfall I see students run into here is that instead of pulling off, they just kind of lift their finger off. Problem here is similar to that of the problems with hammer-ons, that you can end up muting the string. So again, if we were doing C to A, and I just lift off my finger, you still get the A, but not really. Our last technique is slides, and I'm guessing a lot of you guys have already messed around with it, but we're going to talk about it anyway. A slide is when we press down on the string and we slide up or down the neck to another note. So for example, if I was on the note C on the G string, 5th fret, and I wanted to slide up to D, the 7th fret, I would hold down the string, and as I moved my finger up, I'd keep pressing down on the string. Again, we can do this going down too. So D, down to C, D, down to C. One of the big pitfalls I see here is that people won't keep their finger pressed down. So they end up, again, muting the string. So what I'll see happen is they'll play the first note, and then when sliding up to the next one, they'll lift their finger up and then slide. and it doesn't really work. The other tough thing about sliding is making sure that you don't slide too quickly or too slowly, because you want to make sure that you arrive at the note you want to get to at the right time. Alright, so we've made it to the riff. Now, the riff is 4 bars long, but there's a heck of a lot of 16th notes. So the easiest way I think to look at it is to divide it into 4 16th note groups. Now, I will be displaying the sheet music somewhere in this vicinity, but if you'd rather look at a full page, there's a link to one in the description. Also in the description are some play-alongs, because I know you guys asked for those before. So there's a play-along with just drums, and there's also another play-along with bass and drums. Now the first measure begins with a 3 16th note pickup that starts on the E of 4. And the notes we have here are A, C, and D, which I play all on the A string. And the first A is the only one I actually play with my right hand. The other two, the C and the D, are both hammered on. So to play that, we just play A, hammer on C, hammer on D. So let's try that in time. 4, E, and A. 4, E, and A. Our next little chunk comes on beat 1 of the first bar, and we have D, D, C, D. Pretty straightforward. So D, D, C, we're actually going to play all of those with our right hand. D, D, C, and then we're going to hammer on the last D. So it's D, D, C, D. D, D, C, D. Our next chunk has F, F, D, C. And so we're going to play F, F, D, but then we're going to pull off to hit the C. So F, F, D, C. F, F, D, pull off to get C. Our last group of 16th notes for this measure is just C, D, and then another D. So we're going to play C, hammer on D, and then play another D. And the only thing that's a little goofy here is the rhythm. It's a little bit syncopated. So it's C, D, D. 3, E, A. 3, E, A. So let's hear that all together. Moving on to the second measure, you'll notice it's the same thing as the first measure, except for the third group that we have, where instead of having the syncopated part that we had in the last measure, we now just have F, G, C, D. We play F, we hammer on G, we play C, hammer on D. So the second measure sounds like this. Now the third measure is where we start to change things up a bit. Now it starts off the same way as the first two measures. So we have our A hammering on C and D, then we have our D, D, C, D, and then we have F, F, D, but this time F. So our next group is where things get really different. We have an arpeggio of a D half diminished chord. So a D half diminished chord would be D, F, A flat, C. And we arpeggiate that, but we start on the 5th, A flat, down to F, down to D, and then up to the 7th, C. And how we play it is a little bit different too. So I play the A flat, I pull off to get the F, and I pull off again to get the D. I then play the C on top, and then pull off to go down to a B flat. The B flat starts what is essentially like an A augmented chord with a flat 9th. It kind of depends on how you want to look at it. I guess that would be how I would look at it. So we have B flat, down to F, down to C sharp, and then open A, which we're going to pull off of the C sharp to get that A. So just looking at those two groups of 16th notes, we're starting on A flat, pulling off to get to F, pull off again to get to D, up to C, pull off to get to B flat, then F, C sharp, pull off to get to A. So all of that together. Now our last measure is a little bit tough because it combines all the things that we talked about earlier. hammer-ons, pull-offs, and slides. So for our first little chunk, we're going to play the notes D on the G string, 7th fret, hammer-on F, the 10th fret, pull off to go back to D, slide down to C, and then play A, the 7th fret, on the D string. So that sounds like this. The other thing to take note of here is the rhythm is a little bit different too. So instead of having just straight 16th notes, we have a 16th note triplet for our first 3 notes. Our next little chunk is a little bit easier. We then have D going down to C, pull off, and then A flat going down to G, another pull off. So D, C, A flat, G. And for our last chunk, we're going to F, which we're going to slide into from G, and then go down to a D, play the D, pull off for C, hammer on for D. So that last measure together sounds like this. Alright, well that's about it. As always, play this slowly so you're not learning your mistakes. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and maybe checking out one of my other videos floating somewhere over here. You can also check out my beginner and intermediate level courses on Curious.com. The links to both of those are in the description. Well, thank you so much for watching, guys. My name is Dan Lopatka. I'm at Music on the D-Lo on Twitter and Instagram. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.